Welcome back again. Thank you for being such a patient audience and also a very noisy audience, which I love, you know. Very excited to start the next session, which is about storytelling to shift cultural perception. I'm excited to bring this together with my very dear friend and also a very strong supporter of World Women Foundation, MAIRA Genovese, the founder and the CEO of MG Empower, but also a very powerful woman. If she makes up her mind, she gets it done. Let's hear from you.
Thank you so much, Rupa. What an amazing pleasure to have World Women Foundation for the first time at Cannes Festival, right? It's it's a huge milestone for World Women Foundation. And Rupa, the same goes to you. You're a powerful woman. Whatever you say you're gonna do it, you do it. Look at where you are now. So, exactly. So thank you so much for being here, and I'm so excited to be hosting this panel alongside people that I really admire, and then they are kind of like driving the way storytelling can be an impactful way of engaging with not just brands and creators, but also filmmakers and philanthropy. So this is the panel today: how we use storytelling to shift cultural perceptions. So storytelling is a very powerful way, especially nowadays where we're all looking for authenticity, and especially when engaging with films and social media and everything we see and touch. Storytelling now more than ever is playing a huge point on changing the way we engage. Everyone is looking for authenticity when engaging, when watching movies or engaging on social media with creators. So today I have it here, 3 different views on how can we explore how storytelling is change the way they create their narrative in films and philanthropy and producing films. So we start with ROHIT. I would love you to introduce yourself to the audience before we type into the conversation.
Sure. Hey everyone, thanks MAIRA, thanks Rupa. ROHIT from LA, ROHIT BATRA, and I'm a filmmaker about 20 years in the industry and travel quite a bit, so I see different perspectives that I try to infuse in storytelling, and I think it's been a lot of fun so far, and happy to share my point of view. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Maida, for having me today. I'm Tatiana Alonso. I live in London and run a charity that fundraises for projects in the slums of Brazil. We are present in 5,000 slums in Brazil, and we work with 2,000 social leaders. And I'm very happy to share how storytelling is changing the perception of people in the favelas in Brazil.
Hi, I'm GINTA GELVAN. I'm the founding director of the film festival called 16 Days, 16 Films, which is a festival to raise awareness on gender-based violence for female filmmakers, which runs during the 16 days of global activism. So, yeah, storytelling is hugely important for me to change perception, especially on violence against women and girls.
Exciting. So I am the CEO of MG Empower. So MG Empower is an integrated market agency. So I am from Brazil, but based in London for the past 20 years. This is our 10th anniversary in Cannes Film Festival working with Chopard. So as you probably know, Chopard is one of the biggest sponsors of the festival over 30 years now. And this is a great example that we can start with of like how storytelling can shift perceptions, like why a jewelry brand is being sponsoring a festival for over 30 years. So I think the response is Chopard has been creating a story with Cannes Film Festival for the past 30 years, right? So creating a story which is not just about the diamonds, it's not just about the jewels, but also how can Chopard empower the film industry, how Chopard can empower the actors and celebrate film in a different way. So I think Chopard creates the celebration, but also the experience and empowering the culture and the film industry. And what they do here when they bring celebrities and talents and influencers is not just to promote the brand, but also create a storytelling around the brand and then how the brand can show an experience in a such deep way and celebrate film. So, Rohit, over to you now. So, you were a producer, and then, of course, the storytelling is crucial when you're thinking about your next movie, when you're thinking about your next story. So, how do what's the connection you do when you're thinking about, okay, what's the story that I can now write? What's the story that I can be relevant to people that will engage with move? How that process starts and how storytelling plays in that process for you?
That's a great question. I wish I knew the answer. I think inspiration is a mystery. Why do I like this versus that? So it starts with an idea, it starts with a thought. And some thoughts you get excited for a couple of days, some thoughts for 2 weeks or for 2 years. So the ones that stick around, the way I process it, I try to listen to the thoughts that are more persistent. And then I start to ask questions about the thought and say, okay, well, why is this story about a miner in the 1800s? Why is that interesting? Like, I don't know. I have no relation to that. Then I start to get curious and I start to figure out. And over time, you start developing that. And then it becomes real. Then you have a blank piece of paper. And then you're like, okay, well, now I got to put whatever's in my brain out there. So I think what defines a good storyteller is they're able to develop an idea properly, and they also understand what that will do to other people, the relationship that idea has with a stranger over time. Because once a story is told, even like the Greek stories are still told today, or Shakespeare is still relevant today. And so I think the quality of the story and the authenticity of it is what defines maybe a good story from a bad story. So I would maybe put it in two categories. But I think it's a relationship that a storyteller has with the idea and how they develop it over time.
Very good. We're going to come back to the authenticity in a minute. Tati, and then for you is a complete different, industry we're talking about. We're talking about philanthropy, right? And then a lot of people has the perception like why philanthropy needs to think about storytelling. So it would be great to hear from you, or like how you've been driving Gerando Falcões and the new project MAIRA through storytelling.
Well, when you're fundraising, it's basically storytelling because you have to tell the stories of the people that you are trying to help, that you are trying to fund. And Gerando Falcões realized that in the past years that half of the houses in the favelas are run by women and women alone. So we developed a project that create income for the women through a bazaar. And the storytelling of each of these women start, of course, with a sad story and with a story of difficulties, abuse. About that, GINTA in the favelas, this is mostly the case. Abuse, lack of education, lack of opportunity, and etc. But it's not only that. The storytelling has to tell the whole story, and this is how we help. It has to tell the story of resilience. It has to tell the story of working hard, of developing, of getting opportunities and changing. And as our founder, Edu Lira, likes to say, the opposite of poverty is not richness, it's dignity. So what we try to bring to these women is dignity, a dignified life where they can grow, where they can raise their families, where they can progress in life. And the storytelling has to start with a sad one, but has to finish with a good one. And that's what we're trying to do.
This is amazing. Well done, Tati. And Ginta, we're talking about, like Tati just mentioned about, right, women, and then what you are doing with your company, creating a story that talks about women violence and all that issues that sometimes is uncovered by real storytelling. And what you've been doing with 16 Films is really unlock those real stories, and as we talk about words women can. So I think it's great to hear a story and how those real stories has been changing the have an impact on the women violence and then all the the stories that we know that is very lively out there.
Yeah, well, I think we saw bigger movements in the last few years. And big scandals that broke, obviously, that drove cultural and public conversations, starting with the Me Too reckoning. But even a most recent example of the power of film is the Netflix series Adolescence that sparked widespread conversations and outrage, really, to the point that schools are thinking of including the series into the curriculum and showing it to boys and girls. So, wow, you know, there you see the power of film, of what it can do. But I think it's also about one story at a time. So with our festival, we always say, if you only do one thing for us, watch one film. If it touches you, speak about it, share it, you know, that's kind of the power of it, because we can then see how it, you know, the wider the story spread, the bigger the impact on society, because obviously stories shape how we see the world, and it can change people's hearts and minds. So for me, the most beautiful moments is if somebody watched one of our films and said, oh, I didn't know this was happening, or, you know, this really impacted me, or makes me angry, or something, what can I do? And I think that's where I feel you see some power, because it changes people's perception and it sparks empathy and emotion.
It's amazing. And then I think as we are like talking about storytelling, but storytelling without being authentic is just a story, right? And then how to create, and again, I'm going to go back to the example because we work directly with the brands, right? Creating stories and narrative. And now our, you know, consumers are more and more savvy in the way they consume content. So bringing the authenticity in everything we create, everything in writing, everything that we wanted to sell. And I love what you said, ROHIT, that can play a role of longevity when you create a story that is not just like one story that can be ended by the end of the film festival, but is something that can stay, you know, longer. So how then link that storytelling with authenticity? And then, because this is a challenge, right? And then I think Tati will give a good example here. But on your case, how difficult is to create a movie, but also be authentic in the sense that you're not creating something that has already been created or will give that longevity?
It's very difficult. That's why movie making is hard, but I actually do it because it's hard. It requires discipline. So it requires you to be better every day. So it's a personal challenge, and the authenticity part is just something you have to work on every day. Like, you know, you have to eat every day or whatever. So it just it's the stuff that people don't see, like through the hours of the day. But all that influences the ultimate goal is what you're telling, because I think true storytellers, they understand the power of the utility, the power of their position. And they don't, they don't take it lightly. There's people that do, and they get humbled very quickly. That's why a lot of people can't finish projects. In my experience, I've seen they've had great ideas, maybe better ideas than mine, but it's not just the idea that actually a storyteller owns. It's their life they own, the way they look at the world, the relationships with people. And all those like micro experiences add up into the authenticity matrix, I think. Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, talking about authenticity, one thing that I think we all have to be careful is that authenticity cannot be used as a marketing tool. So for brands and companies that want to, and I'm talking about the philanthropy side, of course, align their vision, their mission, their values with a project, and it's to be from the top of the company to the bottom of the company. Every single employee, from owners to management to frontliners, they need to be aligned with the project that was chosen, and it needs to be well thought and cared for, and the authenticity will come naturally because everybody's aligned with the same mission and vision and values. The projects, there are several projects to cater for every taste. And the authenticity comes from the place where everything is aligned to the same objective. So the brands that go to the storytelling, they don't use it only as a marketing tool, but also they are actually doing the project, caring for it. So I think that this is an important thing to think of.
For us, it's, well, number one, the stories are told by female filmmakers, so it's their stories and very close. But I think also for us to look at all the films, so we have a committee of 60 to 80 people from different countries, cultures. It's across the social sector as well as the film industry. So they all look at all the submissions and choose the 16 finalists. And we really, for us, it's really important that we hear all these different viewpoints and experiences. And to be honest, I learn every year myself because there's so many layers to discrimination and abuse, as we all know. So we welcome all these different viewpoints. I think that makes us different to maybe some of the other festivals where, you know, jury comments or committee comments are kept private. For us, we're having very open conversations because we need to notice if there's something problematic. But we don't shy away from being controversial. It's just that we are very conscious of the conversations that are being had around the subject. I think that's what makes it authentic.
Wonderful. And then want to mention here about Chopin, because like as a client, people always ask, okay, but they are there, they sponsor, you have the red carpet, you have the jewelries, but what they're actually doing to contribute to the film industry. So they have few events throughout the festival. One of them is called Trophy Chopin, and what they do with this being, you know, many years now, they look at films that are not official competing for Cannes, but they've been in the list of the films, and they look through it to give the trophy for an upcoming actress and an upcoming actor. So it's a way to celebrate films that are not necessarily part of official of the competition, but they've been indicated to be in Cannes. So this is when authenticity plays, when a brand is trying to engage, you know, in an event that is about film. So what's the contribution the brand is doing? And another one is called the Gentleman Award, which is just the same as the trophy, but it's more focused on the male actor. And then this is when a brand can come and sponsor a festival with a more authentic view because they are contributing to actually, you know, embrace and empower the film industry actor and actress. I think we don't have much time now, but I would love to type in the, you know, the social culture change, right? Because we talk about storytelling, authenticity, but nowadays more than ever, it's so important to whatever we do, how we are creating social, you know, social change in what we do, how we are playing into cultural relevance into the market. And I think especially for film, ROHIT, like when you're creating a film, I like, because when we're creating a marketing campaign for brands, I want a challenge to understand how we're gonna type into the culture of so many different countries and be relevant for that brand. But in the case of film industry, how does it work? How culture relevance plays when you're creating your storytelling and trying to be authentic, plus being culture relevant?
Well, it just adds another layer of complexity. Like, I think the way, I mean, it's like, I look at simply, just listen to what's going on, what are people responding to. Like 3 years ago, everything was different. Now it's different. 3 years from now, it's going to be different. So I think you have to kind of put your ear to the ground and listen. I think listening is very important. And then make good judgment calls on what is going to work with the audience. Because, again, you may have a great idea, and it's just not relevant anymore, and it's not going to work. So timing has a lot to do with it, but and also have good people around you who are, you know, who also are giving you good information. Sometimes you're in a bubble and you hear maybe a certain perspective on the world, and so me personally, I try to have people from all over, all kinds of backgrounds, and so I do make a conscious effort at it because it makes me better as a filmmaker and a storyteller, but you just kind of have to just listen is the answer, I think.
I think for us is exactly the same. The active listening is the most important part. When we start a project in a favela, we need to sit with the community. We sit with everybody. Everybody shares their stories. And, you know, there's a misconcept and a concept on the favelas that there are only bad people in the favelas, and 90% of the people in the favelas are workers and they want to work but they don't have opportunity. How do we shift this perception on the general public, on the brands, on the commercial part? How do we change that to show that we have potential lawyers, we have potential engineers, we have potential digital creators, we have these people in the favela if we give them the opportunity, and we do that by listening to them and by sharing their stories. So storytelling is the core of what we have to do in our daily basis on the fundraising and on the projects in the slums.
Similar, obviously, but yeah, we're very close with our community. Community engagement is key, because obviously they're so passionate about the cause and the subject and so engaged. So that's definitely one thing to look at. But I think in terms of impact, it's also sometimes true impact lies as well in sustained conversations and maybe policy influence. So one example, one of our films from a few years ago that was one of the finalists, called My Blonde GF. It talks about the story of a woman who, unknown to her, her imagery was used for very explicit, violent footage. So it educated us through a very personal story, to the dangers and impact of deepfake porn. So that caused community conversation, media coverage. We did a parliamentary screening to bring the film in front of MPs. So all of that can lead then to policy debates and educating the public, and ultimately and hopefully also policy change. So I think women's stories are so important because, you know, historically and systematically they have been overlooked. And so it's important that we start listening to their stories now.
I have an example here.
Oh, good.
This is one of the things that we used in our last fundraising in London. We actually printed a picture of one of the women from the favelas that work in the projects with us. And we wrote her story, and we glued this envelope under the chairs of each of the people that were there. So during the dinner, we asked them to find the envelope and read the story of the woman. And the story, of course, is the story of resilience. She lived in the slums. She was homeless for 10 years. She was the second or third generation of poor people living in that slum. And when she entered the project, her life was destroyed. She was a drug addict. She had been violated in so many ways. And she started the project, and she turned her life around. Of course, is a happy ending, of course, because we are fundraising for the project. But it shows that when you show the truth story, and when you show that it's possible with help and with the community supporting, she had a lot of support from the community leaders, from other women in the community. And you can turn things around, and it's important to bring the good stories as well as the bad ones, so we can change that.
I think we have 5 minutes. I think it's just like we talk about the impact, right? But I think the key message here that is storytelling without being authentic and without engaging with community, plus without understanding what is the impact you wanted to create on your advertising campaign, what's the impact you wanted to create on the film that you are writing and producing, on the philanthropy, and like what's the impact that while you're doing this and how that story we're going to play. And then the same for you, GINTA, what you do with 16 films. So I think when we combine the three together, I think is when we can see the real impact. And I think that's what gives us the excitement to continue when we see that impact has been made on the story that we are creating through different ways. So thank you so much, guys, for accepting the invitation. Thank you so much for everyone that is being here. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
And thank you, Hoopa, again, for the trust and the invitation. And hope everyone enjoyed the amazing Cannes Film Festival and the weather.